Welcome back to Without a Doubt, the podcast where we celebrate living life authentically and organically as ourselves. We're the ones who believe in creating our own paths and living our truths out loud. Join in on an honest and open conversation about self-discovery and growth. I'm your girl Mad, your host. I'm a freelance entrepreneur, a 30-something-year-old human who has never exactly done what is expected of me. I'm a sprinkle of reality, glimmer of sunshine, and as unfiltered as they come. I'm here to remind you that it's okay to live life differently and that your happiness, it matters. On today's episode, I have a guest co-host. Lucy is a fearless woman who stepped out of corporate after realizing she wasn't really happy. We talk corporate perks, lulls, sober curiosity, and living life on happier terms. She now helps other millennial women by coaching them to find a way out of the corporate career. She helps and supports you by creating plans, exit strategies, and guidance in order to move into the newest version you're yearning for. This conversation reminds you that what you do for work isn't what you are. Discover more of who you're meant to be with this open dialogue about self-worth in the workplace and loving who you are as you are. Your career doesn't define you, and I cannot wait to dive into this. Give us a little intro about you and tell us who you are, where you're from, what you do, and whatever the fuck you want to talk about, honestly.
Yeah, for sure. So I'm Lucy Todd. I am a career discovery coach for millennial women who hate their corporate careers, and I was one. They are like me, too exhausted, too burnt out, or just too stuck to find a way out and find a more fulfilling path, and start making an exit plan out of that career. Um, as I said, I can totally relate because I struggled with that for years. I came out of a 10-year corporate career. So
Wow.
that's why today I love supporting people to gain the clarity and the confidence to actually take the steps to plan their next move and not do it someday, but actually ASAP.
So what did you do in the corporate world?
Yeah, so I worked at a digital agency, and actually, it started out as a really small startup. There were only like 4 or 5 people when I joined, and I joined straight out of college. And then it just turned out to be an amazing company that grew and grew. It got acquired. And of course, once it got acquired and it ballooned up to 1,000+ people, suddenly I was smack dab in corporate. Um, and that's when I really began assessing, like, okay, like, is this really going to be the thing for me? It had
And then
actually been years before, but yeah.
how long now have you been out of the corporate world?
Yeah, so I put in my notice in July 2021, and I just intentionally took a break. I kind of broke the cardinal rule of quitting your job, which is I didn't have anything else lined up. I just was like, I'm gonna take a win from my mental health and just get out. Because like I said, I was too exhausted to figure out what I could do next. Like I was not a side hustle girl. I was not I'm gonna grind away on something else on the weekends, girl. Like this job was my life. Um, and I kind of lost my identity to it. I lost all my energy. So I just knew either I was going to be there for the rest of my career, like panicking and sleepless for decades, or I was going to get out, make a clean break, and figure out what was next.
Yeah, I kind of understand that, but I feel like I was not pushed out, but when the pandemic happened, I got laid off and I was like, you know what? This is probably what I needed to get out. I had been saying I was 1 foot out the door for probably over a year, but I couldn't like for some reason step away. There was something just holding me in. And I'm telling you, I feel like I was exhausted just like you. It was my identity. When people ask me what I did, I'm like, I'm a fitness coach. I work for Orange Theory Fitness. Like, I was that girl. And I mean, I had side hustles too. I always have had a million things going on, but being an Orange Theory coach was like my number one. So I feel I totally understand that identity thing because when I stepped out, I was like, who am I? What am I really going to do? Because the money I was making in my side hustles, I was making good money, but it wasn't what I wanted. It wasn't me. I was doing an MLM, making great money doing it, but I'm not a recruiter. That's not what I like to do. I'm not a salesperson. So I think that's the hardest part when you're feeling stuck somewhere. People generally don't ever leave because you're just not really sure. You feel like you need that comfy mat to fall back on. But I jumped just like you did, more or less, without really a backup plan. I was like, okay, they're laying me off. I'm not going back. I'll figure it out. And so, what did you do in the interim, in your gap year, whatever you want to call that time off?
Yeah. Congrats to you, by the way. And I was an Orange Theory member for like 7 years, so that's
Oh,
very
girl,
cool.
you get it then.
I didn't know you were an Orange Theory coach. That is
Oh
awesome.
man, I grew like, here, long story short, I feel like a lot of people who listen to my podcast came from that life of mine, but I did that. Like, it fell in my lap, like you said, kind of like what your story is, that you had that, it grew to that. I started off at the original, it's called Ellen's Ultimate Workout. Well, she doesn't own it anymore, I don't think, but the creator of Orange Theory, I went to her studio and was a coach for her.
Wow.
And it's in the same town, same city. And they were opening a studio and they're like, do you want to do sales? I'm like, no, I don't, but I do want to be a coach. And I kind of got roped into sales. And finally, when I was like, can I please be coach? They threw me in finally after 9 months. And I stuck with it. I loved it, honestly. It was a great career for the time, but when I was tired of it, I was tired of it. And I think, like, things grow bigger. And I started when it was just the very basics. And then it got really technological and very robotic in what I had to say. And I felt like I couldn't really be myself. We went from like just wearing a coaching shirt to having to wear the entire Orange Theory garb, like Orange Theory pants, uniform. Like, it was just too much. I was like, where's the personality? And I think
Yeah.
that's why I was like falling out. So thank you for that. That congratulations. I feel like I don't even know. The universe told me congratulations because I knew it was the right moment when I stepped away.
Yeah.
Did you feel that way too when you left your job?
Yes, yeah, absolutely. I felt like I took longer than I would have liked to make that leap. So by the time I left, I was very certain that I was ready to do it. So um, yeah, yeah. So in the time since I left, I just, as I said, I intentionally took a long break. I didn't have anything lined up, and I knew that I just needed to like get in like a decompression chamber basically, and just like shed the burnout and exhaustion and figure out who I was outside of that job. Because as I said, it was like one of those, it was I think I mentioned it was a digital agency, so we were like producing advertising and marketing stuff for clients. So it's that ad agency life where you're working nights and weekends because the client needs the thing yesterday, right? They always need it
Yeah.
yesterday. um so yeah, so I just needed to be like, I am not this always on person, this sense of urgency person. Like, I excelled at it, but hated it.
Makes
Um,
sense.
so I basically watched Grey's Anatomy from start to finish for a few months and just like did nothing and was like just preparing myself to get into the next thing. And so shout out to my amazing husband for supporting me
Yeah,
emotionally and financially during
that's
that
what
time.
I was gonna say. I'm like, I think a lot of people would be like, well, how did you pay your bills? And like, how did you manage to do that step away without, because I didn't have anybody to back me up when I left. I'm like, girl, you need to figure it out. I was going through my savings for a little bit
Yeah.
because I was like, I'll figure it out, but I wasn't figuring it out fast enough. And,
Hmm.
like I said, I'm not really the queen of side hustles per se. I guess I'm really the queen of finding an opportunity that'll work for me. And I'll take it for as long as I need to, you know?
Yeah.
So I think that's really cool that you got that opportunity to just veg around. Like, I would love to do that, honestly, but I'm also
Yeah.
a hustle and grind. I broken free a lot, but I'm very hustle and grind. Like, I'm always wanting to do something, either
Yeah.
get outdoors, whether that means like hiking, but I'm like not super restful, I should say.
Yeah. Well, that's
I
good to
don't
know
know.
about yourself, and
I don't
that's
know if I could
totally
like
valid.
veg and watch like an entire season and just, I don't know. I'd be like, okay, I have to go out in the morning and get like sunshine and go move, and then I could come home and do nothing.
Yeah. Oh, for sure. Yeah. I don't mean to say that I like
No.
stayed in bed all day.
No.
But yeah, essentially I was actively not pursuing my next
No
thing.
work or anything.
Yeah, but like I should say leading up to the time when I put in my notice, I was seeking advice from mentors and colleagues about like, okay, I already know that I don't want to do this forever. I need an exit plan, but like I don't want to totally jump ship and have zero idea what I was going to do. So a few months before I left, um, I actually spoke to our business coach from our company. Like he helped us grow from like 10 people to 30 people and get us to the sale. So amazing. Keith Epke's shout out. Um, and yeah, so my boss at the time suggested that I chat with him, and he had this incredible idea to have what he called like a personal offsite to throw like a company offsite meeting, but for myself, so a planning meeting. Because at that time I was just like, yeah, I don't know what I want to do. I just know it's not this. So in May of 2021, I did that. I set aside a whole day and I did like all these introspective exercises and self-reflection. And that really got me to be able to identify here's exactly why this job isn't working for me. Here's exactly what I don't want to do in the future. And here's some ideas about things that I do want to consider. So all of that day of introspection is really what transformed me, got me closer to figuring out that coaching was way more aligned for me. And by that point, that's when I felt comfortable enough to be able to step away and be like, okay, I'm going to take my break, but I kind of
And
know what I'm going to do
and
next.
then
Yeah.
what was that? What was that little like light bulb that you're like, this is what I think I could do next?
Yeah, yeah. So it was really about finding the themes of things that light me up. So at the time that I left, I had been a manager for like 7 years at my company. Um, and I really liked supporting people and being able to kind of guide them through difficult situations, but I didn't like the supervisory management capacity of like being in charge of them or having to pass down orders from on high, which especially as we grew into 1,000-person company, that happens a lot to
Yeah.
middle managers.
As a manager, that's what you are, like basically a messenger.
Yeah, yeah. So, yeah, so in examining what worked for me and what didn't work for me, I found that I definitely wanted to do something that supported people without being in charge of them, looming over them. So like so I already knew that I didn't want to like start a company that I would hire a bunch of people and grow to.
Right.
But in coaching, the more and more that I learned about coaching, it's truly client led. So like I think there can be a perception that you go to a coach and they tell you how to fix your life. But instead, it's really about helping the client to like understand themselves better and listen to their own gut and learn to trust themselves. And when I put that piece together, I was like, that is it. That's exactly what I want to do.
And it
So yeah.
seems you found your little niche in your corporate honeys bubble, you know?
Yeah.
And
Yeah.
I think that there's probably a lot more people than anybody even realize that are doing corporate because A, it pays the bills, you get health insurance, the benefits, they're there. But it's for a lot of people, it's pretty unfulfilling
Yeah.
because you're not really following your light or your passion or whatever. You're not really using like your creative skills. You're just using the skills you know you can use to make money more or less, you know?
Yeah. Absolutely. Yeah. I didn't feel like any creativity or any like connection to the work even, which like we were producing creative work. Like we were doing designs and videos and stuff for brands. Like so technically it was creative.
But
But
you're
I think
sitting
it
there and you're like
was
not motivated to even want to put out that it's like it's a different energy into it, you know? It's just flat.
yeah.
You're doing
Yeah. One of the things that really that has helped summarize why I wanted to get out of it was the kind of like the value proposition statement of like we help brands to blah blah blah. And I was like, stop, stop, stop. I don't want to help brands do anything. To be honest, I want to help people. I want to help individuals.
So now you have a coaching business and you focus on corporate, teaching people an exit plan for coaching. And do you help, like, is it kind of like what you learned in that, those exercises you do and things like that to help them
Yep.
figure out maybe where they need to go next?
Absolutely. Yeah. Yeah. Just having that day of self-reflection for me was so transformative that that's what I have built into my coaching package. So we actually have, I made it a half day because like kind of intimidating, right? To spend 8 hours with someone you barely know on a Zoom call, right? So I think we can achieve a lot in the 4 hours. And that's just part of a multi-session offer that I do to just help people, yeah, to get in touch with what you already know somewhere in there is what you want to do, but you're too tired or you're just not confident enough to like be able to hear yourself say it. So,
That's, well, it's, it's kind of, I feel like slash therapy of someone that's guiding you through the hard parts. And I think that's what's cool about having a coach. I rag a lot on, if you've listened to a lot of my podcasts, I'm like the people that do life coaching and things like that. I'm like, everyone is a coach. Everybody's guiding people through these new life practices, I should say. Everybody's selling something, especially it seems that way, I think, on Instagram. But I also think, a lot of people need that guidance. And I mean it in like, maybe not necessarily life coaches, because I think everybody's just seriously figuring it out. But there's definitely practices and things you can do that will propel you into a better level, next level of wherever you're trying to go. I do think that's where having a coach is beneficial. So I think it's super cool that you do this kind of coaching, because I don't even think people know that there are coaches to help you get out of that corporate work bubble, or just to help you figure out what's a better purpose for you in a career sense. Because think about
yeah.
it. I mean, I talk about this a lot with my girlfriend. When you're a child, when you're younger, your parents don't necessarily put you into things that you really want to do. Or at least you're doing things, they're just testing things out. You're testing the waters. And some kids really find something they like and their parents stick them in it and they do it. Like Kendra played soccer almost like all her life until through high school, right? She didn't do anything else besides that, really. I feel like she played the drums here, but she didn't do anything big with that. So if your parents could say, hey, you really love soccer, you really love to do these things, you really love sports, why don't, maybe if you're not going to be a professional soccer player, maybe you can get into coaching soccer. There's a lot of different avenues and things that your kids like that nobody talks about. They talk about being the president, the teacher, a nurse, a doctor, a lawyer. Those are the things I think of when you're talking to your kids about jobs.
Yeah.
So imagine if you see these characters in your kids. I mean, you're the same age as me too. So I know you went to college, you were pressured to do the college thing, right?
Yeah.
And then you're like, what do I do from here? You got that job, you stuck with it because that paid your bills.
Yep.
So I think maybe if my parents were like, Madison, you're very businessy, you have a lot of ideas, you're very creative, you don't like authority, you really would be a great business owner, probably. You're always wanting to make money. I think my parents could have led me down a better path of being like, go to business school in college. I did not do that. I went and studied and got my degree in liberal arts with a minor in anthropology to be a teacher. And
Hmm.
I don't even love kids. I like kids, but I don't want to teach kids. What was I thinking? Where's the guidance? I always think like, maybe if we had more guidance instead of, these are your traditional routes, these are the things that you like, let's open the door to what you like, kind of like what you're doing now with people as adults and what they're trying to get out of. We might be more, not propelled, but more, the success might be easier to come for us instead of us constantly striving to figure it out.
Yeah.
Adults know,
Yeah.
they watch us, they see, and like you can tell when somebody is really interested in something. Like, wow, you're really artsy, like you could probably do that for a living.
Yeah.
But they don't
Yeah.
think of it that way because it's a really hard way to make money.
Hmm.
It's not traditional.
Yeah.
Corporate's very traditional.
Absolutely. Yeah. I can totally relate to the college direction kind of thing. I ended up being an English major, a creative writing major, but that was after going to art school straight out of high school and then dropping out when I knew that wasn't for me, and then going back to like get my associate's degree and back and forth. So basically what that made me think of, and I think is a common experience for people right after out of high school, is just like, okay, you've been in school for 13 years, like basically your whole
Mhm.
life. And
Right.
now you're like gonna jump straight into school more and decide exactly what you're gonna do for the rest of your life. Like that has always felt a little unrealistic to me. I feel like we need a little bit of time to figure out what we want to do next. And so having to like go straight into college and declare your major and what you're gonna do for the rest of your life is like so
Well, they're like,
fast.
they want you to pick your major in your 10th and 11th grade of school. In
Yeah.
10th grade, I wanted to be a marine biologist, you
Yep.
know? And it's like,
It's
and
so our
Kendra,
era, everybody.
yeah, Kendra too. She's like,
Yeah.
but we were, okay. So then we were talking about, this is crazy, kind of the whole, like, that is our era. Like Lisa Frank and swimming with dolphins, right? Um, we were just talking and I was like, maybe marine biologist was a saturated field. That's what they were telling everybody. It's a hard job to get. You're not going to get paid a lot of money. It's you got to live in like by the water, things like that. But there's a lot of different things you can do in marine biology. Like I said about soccer, you don't have to be a soccer player. You could be a coach, you could be a strategist, you could be a coordinator, a recruiter, whatever. In the marine biologist world, you could have been a dolphin trainer, a vet, I could, we were talking about this in the kitchen 3 days ago, I feel like. But there's so many avenues in that field of ocean and water and animals. Like you could be an aquarium owner. Do you know what I'm saying? Like that doesn't fall necessarily as a marine biologist, but it's water and fish and it kind of is down the avenue. And I
Yeah.
just we forget. I don't we forget that we're not like that there's all these other things versus that. And I'm like, I just wish there was more guidance. And I don't want kids and I'm not going to have any, but I think that's one thing that when I talk to kids, I'm like, there's a lot of things you can do. You don't have to just do like that.
Yeah.
Like that.
Yeah,
Like try
absolutely.
other things. Yeah. And I think as an adult, I'm trying all those things now to figure it out still. Like I make money a million ways because I like doing so many things.
Yeah. Child free by choice over here too. So we're just like we're just like samesies over here. But
I like how we have to say like child free by choice, but
yeah.
I, honestly, it's nice to not have to worry about that. But
Yeah. But yeah, I mean, to your point about like there just being there's so many other avenues that you can go in once you find an interest. I think that really gets into like the self-exploration and the detailed like, well, why are you interested in this? And like, how does this relate to other things you're interested in?
right.
Because yeah, there's such the surface level of this can make you money, or this is a common thing that you see in documentaries or news articles, so you can be that. But yeah, getting into the nuance of like, okay, well, I wouldn't want to be a marine biologist because I love being with people every day. So maybe working in the zoo would be like more aligned with me because I'd get to interact with the guests. Like, and that's really what a lot of my work and my passion is, and what a lot of the work that I did with myself is like, okay, well, why, and what are the details about this that make this a fit or not a fit? And there's like no right or wrong answers. And I think that's where the self-exploration versus the advice part comes into. Because with advice, it's very much like someone else being like, well, I see this and this, so you should do X.
Right.
And I don't know about you, but I'm usually like, don't tell me what I should do. I don't like, I'll even just not want to do it because somebody told me I should. But with
Right.
coaching, it's more about discovering what is within you, and igniting that fire and finding your own like your self-discovery path instead of taking external advice.
Exactly. And it's easier
Yeah.
to get that external advice from other people and think that's what you need to do. I mean, even now I feel myself doing that. And I have two YouTube channels. This one for my podcast, which this is like my main focus, but then I have a thrift haul because that's my main income is reselling online. I do
Mm,
e-commerce, and I really love showing people what I'm getting. But then I'm like, why am I doing these videos? Like, what's the purpose? Do you know,
mm,
like, I don't care. I feel like I don't care that much. You know what I'm saying? So like when I'm
mhm,
putting these out, even if I get 5 views on this video, I'm a lot happier versus 126 views on my thrift haul video because I'm just not the value and my purpose isn't really aligned. But I
mhm,
think I started doing the YouTube because somebody told me, Madison, like you would be great at showing people your thrift hauls and what you pick up. So that's why I ended up doing that. And I think like if I would have just listened to myself instead of somebody else, that external, I would have never started that, but I also probably wouldn't have learned all the things that I learned in order to like really produce and get my podcast out. Thank you,
mhm.
Lonnie. I got to give my girl a shout out because she actually helped me learn all the things I need to make my podcast. So I guess if I hadn't done that, I wouldn't be here, but I did that channel because she was like, Madison, you should do it. You'd be great. Everyone loves your personality. But in the back of my mind, I had always wanted to do my podcast. So I don't know
Mhm.
why I shouldn't have just asked her, can you just help me try to get my podcast going? Teach me editing on that. But, self exploration, figuring
Yeah.
it out. And
Yeah.
it's just learning in my 30s, I guess. It never ends, does it?
Yeah. Well, and it sounds like it was a stepping stone to
Right.
like, it sort of helped confirm that the podcast was the right direction for you
Right.
because it was like close to it. Right. And I think that's so important and undervalued. And I think that's one of the differences between trying to pick your major when you're 18 and trying to explore a career shift in your 30s is like now you have some experience under your belt and
Right.
you have some like, yes, that was awesome and no, that was terrible evidence in your
It's like
life.
dating.
So.
It's like you know exactly what you want in your next relationship versus what you don't want. And I
Yeah,
mean,
exactly. I love it.
I feel like it's got to be hard for you though because you were at your same place for 10 years you said.
Mhm.
I worked for Orange Theory for almost 7. I feel like when you're with the same place for a long time, you grow with them and you move with them and like you said, you find your identity becomes that of where you work. So when you broke free and you decided to quit, like what did you do to say, "Hey, I'm Lucy again. This is who I am. I'm not just a digital marketer that works for that agency." Like what
Yeah.
did you do?
Yeah, it
Grey's
was
Anatomy couldn't have changed your whole life that much.
no, and I'd seen it before too. It was a comfort show. But yeah, it was such a huge shift because like, as you say in conversation, someone's like, "Well, what do you do or what have you been up to?" And it's always like, working a lot."
I hate
Um
that. I hate
so
that
then
answer.
yeah. But it was the only thing I could ever think of whenever someone would ask me that. It would just glaze over and be like, yeah, I'm working a lot because it was true. Um, so yeah, after I vegged out a whole bunch and finally started to want to do things again, for one, I eased myself back into the working world by starting to do freelance writing services, which I'm actually still doing as I'm still getting my coaching business off the ground here. So I was able to use some of my old skills from my previous job to do that. Um, and that bolstered my self-confidence and sense of identity because I never thought of it this way, but freelancing is running a business.
Yeah.
It's running your own business. So that was sort of like my testing ground to be like, can I work for myself? Can I run my own business? Because I felt like for so long, one of the reasons I excelled in the agency world was that even though it was so freaking stressful, I'm like, can I say the F word on here?
Yeah. Yeah. I
Sweet.
always explicit checked.
Awesome. Okay. Even though it was so fucking stressful to always be on and always urgent and like checking my emails and stuff, um, I, because I like to support people, I get motivated by the fact that somebody needs me to do something. So I really worried when I went into business for myself that I wouldn't have that motivation. But I've learned through freelancing and through starting my coaching practice that I actually love working for myself.
I love it too.
Yeah, and then I guess just the freedom that I felt from not being weighed down all the time with my exhaustion and anxiety. led me to be able to explore personal interests and curiosities and passions too, which like I had no hobbies when I was
Yeah,
working.
because it's really, this is why I think I'm so against the 40-hour work week. Although I do work more than 40 hours, I just really spread them out because between everything that I do, right? I can be honest, I do a lot between my reselling business, I'm thrifting, but when I'm thrifting, I'm out doing something that I like sorting through clothes. I enjoy it, it's relaxing. I think that's why when people are like, Madison, why don't you record yourself, then put those up? I'm like, no, because that's what I like to do. I like to go and disconnect from my phone and sort through clothes and see what I can find. It's like a treasure hunt. I like to do that. Thrifting is something I've done my entire life since I was before I was even in high school. My aunt used to take me to like Goodwills and Salvation Armies and thrift stores when we went to California. I like that stuff. So now that I can incorporate it into what I do, that the 5 hours that I spend out thrifting don't feel like work, but I can
Mhm.
spend 20 hours a week out thrifting and then 50 hours or 60 hours at home listing, packaging, doing my inventory spreadsheets. It doesn't feel as much as a 40-hour corporate work week, I feel like would feel to me, because I'd be tied down to set hours, micromanaging managers. I think that's why it appeals to have your own business, because you can just leisurely do what you want. But like I said, I do work more, and I there's other cons to owning your own business and working from home and not having a boss. I don't have health insurance like from my company.
Yeah.
It's like there's a lot of things outside of that. So I find myself, I have more freedom in my time because I can work from 8 p.m. to midnight if I want to. I can go to lunch in the middle of the day with my grandma, or go get a pedicure, or go hang out with my mom, or if somebody calls and says, let's go to the beach, I can do that. But if you work a 9 to 5, you're set to being there at those times. Then you come home from work. You don't, maybe you're just already tired from your day. You only have your 2 days off a week. Like, I just think
Yeah.
those set hours sometimes really restrict people in finding the little sparks in life that make you happy.
Yeah.
So I'm sure it was easier for you to find those little passions and creativity things when you left.
Yeah, absolutely. Yeah. It's definitely a different kind of taxing, as you said, having those set hours that somebody else has bestowed on you versus being able to set your own hours. So yeah, I definitely found that I just had more like mental space and more energy to figure that
Right.
out. Yeah. So I try to talk about those a little bit on over on my Instagram too, of just like because I have to imagine other people feel that way too. Like I used to have hobbies, what happened? Um, so like one of the things I credit leaving my corporate job with is being able to explore sober curiosity,
Yeah,
which I also never would have found if not for Instagram and TikTok. Like
okay,
amazing
so
social media.
basically, do you feel that you drank a lot because you would just come home from work, pour a big glass of wine because you had a long day, and that was like your unwind?
Yeah, absolutely. And it just grew and grew. And then the pandemic hit, and there were two kinds of pandemic drinkers. There were some people who literally quit during the pandemic, and oh my gosh, like amazing. I am in awe of those people. And then there were others who were like, oh, we're home all day now. Like happy hour starts at 2.
That was us.
And, and I definitely fell into that category. And it was like, okay, if we're going to be on lockdown, then what's a good way to make it go faster? Like, I'll just keep pouring myself glasses of wine and making fancy cocktails because that like brings
It
a
was
little bit of
fun.
joy into a dark time. But yeah, it just was like at a certain point, it was like, okay, I'm drinking daily and then drinking a lot on the weekends. And like like we were having like Zoom drinking parties with people. Like it was wild. And I was like, I don't know. And suddenly TikTok began to show me on the For You page, like people who were exploring sobriety. And I didn't even know that was a thing. Like I definitely thought that was only for people who identified as alcoholics and who like were hurting their families and, and just like
The stigma.
destroying everything. And I was like, wait, huh? I could do this. And so for a long time, it sounded like not fun and not cool because I would be like the only person in my friend group who wouldn't drink or whatever. But I just started to play around with it a little, couple dry Januaries and like, drinking less during the week. And but yeah, I didn't really get anywhere with it until after I left my corporate job because it was, as you said, just such a crutch and like the easy button to hit at the end of the day.
It is easy. I mean, I'm not a big drinker. I definitely think I used to be a bigger drinker, but my girlfriend gets migraines from like everything she drinks. And she has like one cheap ass bottle of wine she likes, and they don't sell that when you go out to dinner. They don't have like the
Yeah.
cheap brand from Walmart. And I do like a good beer, but I don't like to be drunk. I'm a true stoner. Like I smoke weed almost all day, but I am super functioning and nonstop 24/7. Like I think sometimes I get through like my day and it's 2 o'clock and I haven't smoked anything. And I just feel like my checklist is like and the longest receipt, it's like,
Yeah.
damn girl, take a second. But the alcohol thing, the sobriety thing, I definitely saw the whole trends and TikToky, even on Instagram. That's where I hang out mostly. I see a lot more of the people talking about it there. And I can clap for people to do that because I think people definitely use it, like you said, as a crutch. It's like your little bestie. You're excited to go home and do that. And it's not necessarily the best thing that we do for ourselves to
Yeah.
lean into that bottle of wine. Or to me it makes me like just want to sleep and cry. So I
Yeah.
that's why I'm not a big drinker. Like weed just makes me like want to sit around. If anything, I come back down to earth. Like, I'm on another planet. I just feel like that. So
Yeah.
yeah, but
Yeah.
I like to drink socially and I like to get drunk at sporting events because it's more fun, but I never feel good. So
Yeah. 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 And for me, it tied back into like self-discovery because the more that I began to, or the less that I drank, I guess, I began to realize how much I relied on it for social situations. I'm definitely an introvert. I consider myself a little socially awkward, maybe not like full-blown social anxiety, but awkward. And so my confidence began to skyrocket the more that I began to socialize sober. So yeah, it's been life-changing and also allowed me to pursue other interests that I wouldn't have if I was still drinking daily, like running. I'm a runner now.
you go, girl.
Wow. So something I was trying to do like since college. I was like, I wish I liked running, and I thought I hated it. And now I finally put some real time and energy into it and actually super enjoy it. So, yeah,
I think the people
just
who
all
say
good
they
things.
don't like running, you have too much like going on. You don't know how to just separate what's going on from like it. Running isn't comfortable. I don't know anyone who thinks like, let me just go run and it's going to be dandy and nothing's going to hurt. It does. Your body feels something. I was a fitness coach. I've run half marathons. Like I did triathlons. But there is a high that comes from running that you do get at some point if you just stick it out. I hate to say it, if you stick it out, but it
Yeah.
doesn't matter how fast or how slow. I love to run. Kendra hates to run. I'm always like, do you just want to go run a mile? It's like pulling a tooth for her.
Yeah.
And I'm just like, girl, just do it. Like, put on your music, get in your brain, like, tell yourself some positive things and move. I don't always feel great after, like, right away, but later I'm like, I'm so glad I did that.
Yeah.
I think even a good, nice, I'm a hot girl walker too. We walk a lot.
Yeah.
But
Yeah.
I bet you, I guarantee you that your sobriety, your sober curiosity is truly what made your body happy to move like that because alcohol doesn't really do much for us.
Yeah, yeah, absolutely. And there is a weird overlap between like the running and fitness community and the alcohol community too. Like it's so bizarre. Like even like at Orange Theory, they'd be like, "Hey, we're doing a studio get together at a brewery this Saturday." I'm like, "Huh? What?"
Yeah, there's a lot
So,
of that.
but
And I think
yeah,
that's when okay, so we're talking about like workplaces, corporate, and you start to see things in where you work and cracks and things that you maybe don't agree with, or you're just that's when I started to realize like, I got to get out of here. This
yeah.
isn't really what I signed up for in the beginning. And I've outgrown this place. Or better yet, I almost felt like Orange Theory outgrew me. And I know
Mm,
that's like sounds strange, but I when I stepped away, like I said, I felt like a relief. Like I was always trying to play catch up. Right when we learned something new, we got to where we were. It was like, okay, here's this new script, here's some new phrases, here's a new piece of technology to learn. And I guess that's in most jobs, right? You're always constantly learning. But I feel like in the kind of job that I had, I was required, you put this in our little notes, um, required to do so many tasks in that job that wasn't really my job. I was an
Mhm.
Orange Theory fitness coach, but I was also your cheerleader, your motivational speaker, the DJ, by the way, because when I coached, they didn't have one app every coach played. We had to make our own music. And not just that, I tested designs for Orange Theory, which I never got paid extra for. I did a lot. I was an assistant manager. There's just like not assistant manager, assistant head coach, and all these titles that I was never paid for. And I think to myself, wow, I took on all these jobs and that was really burning me out. Having all these little extra hats I had to wear. Oh, I was a social media marketing. And then when I got home, I had to talk about how great my classes were, which they were fucking bomb. Everyone rocks it there, right?
Yeah.
But then I had to write and tell everyone good job that wrote to me on Facebook Messenger because you're kind of somewhat a local celebrity.
Yeah.
And I'm telling you, it's exhausting.
Yeah.
Like I felt that exhaustion from work in a different way. And I only work 3 to 4 hours a day. I went
Yeah.
home though and I was on my phone. Good job. Great job, Lucy, today. And I meant it. But why do I have to tell you for the third time? Like,
Yeah, I already high-fived you. Told
my
you thank
job required more than in studio. So it was just a lot. And I think that breaking out of that and finding what I really who I really wanted to be, like you said, that you wanted to support people and that's what you liked. And that's what I like too, is I like supporting people. I love clapping for people and I love watching people like truly change and do things. And I was getting salty there because after 6 years of coaching, how many years did you go to Orange Theory? And how
Yeah.
long was your base pace of 6?
Yeah.
When did you ever change that? Right.
Right.
It's like, damn, Lucy, I've seen you for 6 years, girl. Are we looking for anything else? No, we're still lifting the 20s. We're still doing the same things. And it's like, I realized I was losing what I was there for. And that was just to motivate people to be a better version. I was looking for everyone to be faster, be fitter. And I lost who I was coaching there, which is wild. I turned into the Orange Theory prototype coach. Like, tap out of a point one. Let's go. Let's go.
Yeah.
So it's crazy. I definitely lost myself. And when I got out of it, relearning who I was and what I wanted to be and what I was really good at was supporting people. But I like that. I really do admire that you went in and realized I could be a coach for this and help people because, like I said before, I hate on it all the time. But I think that's ultimately what we are all seeking. What do you think when people are trying to leave? Like the ultimate things that's like holding people back from leaving, it's not always financial. Like,
Mhm.
what do you think is most people's fear, like from stepping away? Like for me, I think I was most scared that I was going to lose a network of people, which I did. I was
Mhm.
going to lose all these people that loved me, supported me, put me on this little pedestal. Like, if I was an Orange Theory coach, Lucy, right now, and I put this podcast out, I would have 500 listens a day, 100
Yeah.
listens a day, even. But
Yeah.
I'm not an Orange Theory coach anymore. And I lost a lot of my people, my community, because I betrayed and left.
Yeah.
So my fears were that
Yeah.
I think this is the one, I'll let you go. The one thing somebody told me was, Madison, like, you think you have a follower, you think you have followers until you realize the people around you, it's just a dinner table, girl. It's a dinner table. You don't
Mhm.
have that entire room of people coming to eat your buffet.
Yeah.
And he was so right.
Absolutely.
He was so right. I hate to say it because this guy was such a fucking narcissist, but like he's up his own ass 100%. But when he told me that, I was thinking, no, man, my classes are overbooked, waitlisted. like people come for me. That's fucking wild to say. But people
Yeah.
were like, Madison, I come for you. You know, I get up at 5 a.m. for you.
Yeah.
So I was so scared. And when I stepped away, I'm like, these people aren't going to want to support me. And a lot of them didn't. So I think that was my fear. So what do you feel or hear from people?
Yeah. Yeah, I think community is definitely a big one. And not only like clients, but colleagues, work colleagues too. Like a lot of us are work friends are some of the people we spend the most time with. In fact,
That's true.
there's a stat which I wish I had pulled up before this call now, but there's a stat about who you spend the most time with as you get older. And it's your coworkers, like between 20 and 60, I think.
Well, it
Um,
makes sense, no? You're
yeah.
here all day.
Yeah, yeah. So now I work for myself and I spend the most time with myself, which is kind of great. But anyway, yeah,
Does your husband work from home or no?
no, he works outside the home. He's a barber. So
Cool.
he gets that social interaction all day long,
Oh,
which is
that's on
nice
like the
about
list of things I would love to do too.
yeah,
Is that
yeah.
crazy? I'd love to be a barber. I shave my
It's
mom's
good.
head like every 2 weeks.
Nice. Yeah.
She has no she's healthy and fine, by the way. She just wanted to have no hair since COVID. So
Oh, all right.
we buzz it to a zero, and everyone asks her if she has cancer now.
Right on.
But yeah,
I did my stint with the shaved head at 16, 17. I rocked that for a little while.
she did that
Um,
too. Now she's 65 and bald, basically. But
yeah.
yeah, so I mean, so you're home by yourself most of the time.
Yeah, yeah. But I think that's good because I think as an introvert, I was like overextending myself at the office, and as a manager, right? So it's like so much of my day was in meetings, talking to people in groups, and it was just a lot. And so now I get to like do that for fun because it's what I want to do in a one-on-one situation, which is way less draining for me. But yeah, like thinking back to other people's like big fears when they're thinking about trying to leave and they just don't know how to jump ship. I mean, I think financial is definitely a big one that it's one that's important to plan for. Everybody is going to have a different like risk tolerance and a different like amount of support available there. So that's like definitely a reality factor to consider. And then I think it's that sense of identity. Um, even if you're not someone who has been in the same company for 10 years, like maybe you've been in the same industry still and been job hopping, it's still a big part of your identity.
Yeah.
And there's a lot wrapped up in the fact that you have experience there. And you've got like all these little, points to fill out on your resume and your different titles that show like I am expert in XYZ industry. And the idea of like losing that, quote, losing that by changing careers is terrifying.
I think
Yeah.
definitely that terrifying changing career thing. It just made me think of something. I used to have a client when I worked at Orange Theory, and he actually was a manager for like I want to say 20 something years for a pretty big restaurant chain. Well, they laid him off, and I guess they're just closing some stores. They laid him off, and he was like, I have no idea what I'm going to get back into. Like, I have been with this company for this long doing this. I'm like, why can't you just move to another company, do that for like be a manager for one of their bigger chains or something, which he did. But I think that initial thought process of I work for this, I am this, and how am I going to go and do the same thing somewhere else? It's almost like your loyalty, it's where your loyalty lies. You're like, I've been loyal to this company for this long. How do I go and do something with the same industry with maybe my competitor, you know?
Mhm.
So that just
Yeah.
made me think about him at that moment when, he lost his job. And I remember what a big he was in his 50s, that's a big blow for somebody in your 50s to try to reestablish a career. We're not just talking 30-year-old women here. This happens to people all the time that you have to reroute,
Yeah.
refigure it out. But I think it's better if it's on your choice. It's on your decision, your prerogative.
Absolutely. Yeah. Because, like, yeah, hats off to you for, as you said, when you ended up getting laid off and you realized, like, okay, this is a good opportunity to make a change. Because I've thought about it, and like our company was going through layoffs around the time that I left, and everybody's still going through layoffs. Like LinkedIn is blowing up with layoffs. So I realized like there's a very high likelihood that I would have been laid off by now if I hadn't left. And I know personally for me, if I had been laid off, I would have just panicked, scrambled, and tried to find any job in the same field related to my skills and talents. Because I would have felt like just this sense of urgency of like, this has been thrown on me and now I need to fix it.
At first, I
Um,
did feel that way though. I did.
yeah,
Like, once I got laid off, like, I was looking around everywhere to see what I could do in that same field. But I was thinking to myself, I felt like I worked for like cream of the crop. I can't go and work for another place. It didn't feel right,
yeah,
you know? So I think that's that whole thought process on moving around and getting laid off, though, I was salty. Could you
yeah,
imagine you get laid off? Like, quitting and being laid off, like, it was what I needed, but it's not what I want. I didn't want to leave at that. I left with not on my own terms, really.
yeah,
They were like, hey, sorry, this is what's happening. And I was just like,
yeah,
okay, peace it, deuces, I'm not coming back.
yeah, yeah. It's just a totally
It's
different,
different. It was
yeah,
different. It wasn't like I just quit. It was like, we're letting you go for, you know, however long, and we'll rehire you back at some other point. And I was just like, I'm not going to wait around because the only thing I could take was unemployment. That's why they recommended us to get laid off. I'm like,
hmm,
that's not going to support me, my unemployment money. Like,
yeah, it's a fraction of what you make. So,
exactly.
yeah,
And I think
yeah,
like that's one of those things. If you do quit your job, you're more likely not to get a lot of your benefits and stuff from your company, like severance or whatever
yeah,
kind of
no
your insurance. A lot of people don't step away or just quit right. You need that plan so that you can protect what you've been working for, which
yeah.
is, oh my God, all of these things I didn't even think about until really now, I guess, because I've never had an exit plan, Lucy. Never thought I needed one until maybe now.
Yeah, yeah, it is a lot to think about, and there's just so much of the reality that sets in of like, yeah, well, how am I going to support myself in the interim if I'm choosing to take a break without something immediately lined up, and then like, how are things going to ramp back up, financially in my new role, and then there's all the hard skills of like people are having such a hard time finding a job right now, right? So like I just sent out a newsletter to my list last week that was like titled "Who the fuck do I think I am?" That was about like having the audacity to tell people that, hey, there's a better career path out there for you. When I'm literally seeing posts on LinkedIn of people being like, just got rejected from my 838th job. Like, people are applying to literally hundreds of jobs right now, and it's so hard to get another job. So like here I am telling people, oh yeah, just quit. Like it's cool.
But what do you think?
Yeah.
What's your take on that? Share your little newsletter blurb with us here.
Yeah, yeah, absolutely. And so I guess like my ultimate point on that was just that like it's everything in life is a trade-off and there is a balance of different risks involved. So either you're going to get laid off or quit and scramble to keep finding something that is unfulfilling for you to where it's like kind of a lose-lose, um, to continue in that industry.
True.
Or you can choose to take that time to like change your life and find a new direction. And now those things don't have to be mutually exclusive, I think is the other important point. Like it is completely valid to find another job to pay your bills while at the same time embarking on self-exploration and figuring out what you want to do next, strategically planning to leave in a year or 2 years or 3 years even, right? Like everybody's circumstances are going to be different.
True.
But the decision to pursue that change or not to pursue it is on us, which sucks. It sucks to think about like, right, you're in control. Nobody's going to change your life for you, but it's true. Um, and the fact that I'm sitting here, 2.5 years after I left my corporate job, Yeah, making a fraction of what I used to make for sure. Scraping by at the moment and still have zero regrets.
And
Absolutely none.
I could relate to you, right? 100%. And that's what I tell all the time. I was like, I'm just making it. I was talking to someone about this recently, my hairdresser, and she's like, what's going on? Are you still selling that stuff? I'm like, no, not doing that. I'm like, I literally like pay my bills and I'm happy doing that. And I'm like, I'm not making 100 grand a year. I'm not even making 75 grand a year. Maybe at one point, Kendra and I will be doing that in our digital space, but I don't need that to be happy. And at one point, having and making all of that money, I was still living and scraping by because I had more and I was using more. It's
Hmm.
it's all relative at the end of the day. You know,
Yeah.
you
Yeah.
have more money, you buy more things, you get nicer things, you go out more. I just think I don't live less because I have less. I honestly feel like I live more because I don't need more, which is
Yes.
wild. I need less so I have more. That's like my mom and I's like favorite thing. Like the less you need, the more you have.
Yeah.
And I think, a lot of people are afraid to step away. Financial, you're right. But you're just like worried about everything else that comes along with. I think people also are afraid of failure. Like your family and your friends are going to think you're crazy from stepping away from something that maybe has all the stability or has the big money signs behind it. I know a lot of people definitely, I'm from South Florida. Where do you live, Lucy?
Yeah, I'm up in Seattle, so
Okay,
like
you're
opposite.
other way. I mean,
Yeah.
I feel like people are more themselves maybe in Seattle. Like, I live a very Miami, South Florida, Fort Lauderdale. What you see on TV is kind of sort of what it is here. I don't look like the average girl, and there's a lot of people like me, but it's a rat race here. The nice cars, everyone has nice cars. Having an old car is like not the norm. Having
Yeah.
nicer, bigger white houses, and that's not me either. So I think, if you can be true to yourself and feel happy with what you have, you can step away sometimes from things that you don't really feel aligned with anymore, like your job.
Yeah.
Some of us are just
Yeah.
hanging on because of those reasons.
Yeah, absolutely. I think it's that difference like between having more, spending more, and maybe you're going out a bunch and buying a lot of things because you're disconnected from your hobbies and your passions and you don't even have time to like do hobbies or passions. So you're like, okay, let me buy this
Na-
handbag instead.
Nailed it on the head. Nailed it
Yeah.
on the head. That's
Yeah,
the
or
truth.
you can be happy, happier, or I guess more fulfilled, right? Happiness is very relative, like everything else, but you can feel more fulfilled with less because like I'm spending my time running and being healthier and like catching up with people and being my authentic self in social situations. And I would have none of those things if I was still like just dragging away burnt out at my
Yeah.
corporate job. So
And and it happens
that's
for the
why I
best
have
of
the
us.
audacity. That's who the fuck I think I am. It's helping people find that
Well, you
instead.
know what? I think more people need to tell people that because it's true. Like that's kind of what I feel like I share in my messages. Like you can lead the life that you want the way you want to, no matter what other people think, or really no matter like having the being the president of a high of a being the president of a corporation doesn't make you any better than me being a podcast host living in my 1000 square foot home. You know what I'm saying? Driving my car that's 12 years old. It doesn't matter. You're not any better than me. Your worth isn't, maybe your bank account might have more than me, but your happiness might not be more than mine. And
Yeah.
I think happiness is the ultimate wealth. you know
Yeah. Exactly. That's like it's like outward appearances and what other people think versus your inner peace and your inner sense of self.
and
And they're completely different.
earlier you were saying, a lot of times people would say like, oh, well, what are you up to? And you're like, just work. I'm like, I think the one question that I don't know if I hate it or I don't know how to respond anymore. So I am a freelancer, but I don't like when people are like, "Oh, well, what do you do for work?" Because I do a lot of things. I work doing I cater. Like I'm a server for a catering company, but I'm a podcast host. I also sell hair hair care products, but I don't promote them. There's so many
Yeah.
things I do for work. I can't just put it in one title. So sometimes I'm just like a freelancer, but people usually like to put your worth with what you do for work. You say,
Mm-hmm.
oh, well, I own my own business. People are like, wow, that's amazing. She owns her own business, right? But if I told you, oh, I do social media content creation, you're maybe put me down a few notches because I didn't say I own my own business, but I could own my own
Mm-hmm.
business as a social media content creator. There's
Yeah,
just a lot of things that I think people are very judgmental with. So when people say, what do you do for work? I hate that question. I guess I do hate it because
yeah,
it doesn't define who I am or my worth or what I bring to this earth. It's just what I do to make money to pay my bills ultimately. I
exactly.
We need to walk around and start asking people like, what's your purpose, Lucy? Because you would be like, my purpose is to support people. Like
Yeah,
I'm here to
I love that because I
support
was
a
like,
human.
we need new small talk questions besides like, oh, it's raining or how's the weather and what do you do for work? I'm guilty of saying those things too because I'm socially awkward. But it's like, okay,
No,
that's a default question.
it's
But
easy to ask that stuff because I think it kind of gives you an idea of like who's that person. Because if somebody's like, oh, okay, like for example, if somebody's like, I'm a radio DJ, you would be like, that's a really cool job. And then you could ask them more questions about it. It kind of opens up a door for conversation because people love to talk about themselves, right?
yeah,
But some people don't really love their jobs and sometimes it just closes the door automatically, and like you said, it's social, like I'm socially awkward, but it's not that. It's like that's just not anything they're passionate about talking about, just
yeah,
something we do. So it's an easy conversation starter. It's just one of those questions that we really need to change, I think.
yeah,
I try
yeah.
hard.
And
I think people our age don't ask it as often though. When
mhm.
I have hung out and been to some baby showers, there's other people that are my age and they're not asking me like, so what do you do for work? A lot of them usually don't talk,
Yeah,
but some of them are like, oh, how do you know so and so?
yeah,
Or, I don't even know what random conversations come about, but I feel like most of them don't revolve around what I do for work. And I almost feel like better because I feel like my self-worth sometimes is less when I tell people. I was in a room full of nurses one day and I was like, "Oh yeah, I own my own business. Like I resell online." And they're like, "Oh." It opened a conversation to talk about me because it's something none of them do. But I
yeah.
felt weird talking about it because like they were asking a lot of questions. They couldn't understand it.
Yeah.
So, I
That
don't
is so
know.
interesting. Yeah, it
Yeah.
can feel it. Yeah, I've been in that situation also where work doesn't come up, which we were talking about earlier, and it is so refreshing to like leave a situation and be like, oh, we didn't even talk about work. We just talked about like being people. And I think
Yeah.
that just reminds me of like one more point I like to make for people who are skeptical about like coaching or even just like focusing so much on your career as your identity is that I don't believe in dream jobs. I like to make that clear. I think the dream job is a ridiculous myth that just centers around the fact that your work should be your whole identity. And I mean, I will say for people for whom their career and what they do is super important to them and doesn't feel like work to them, if you feel like you have found or are looking for your dream job, like cool, I'm not here to challenge you on that. But I also just want to like reassure people that like you don't even finding a fulfilling career that makes you happy doesn't have to be your dream job that is your whole self.
And
So
you also don't have to make money on your hobbies, okay?
yes, yes. Sometimes hobbies are just hobbies. Like I follow a lot of running coaches on Instagram, as I've been interested in my running hobby, but I'm not going to do that for work. Some things just need to be for me. So,
Yeah, exactly. Like I'm not going to teach people how to thrift because I enjoy doing that for me. I
yeah,
think
yeah,
it's so important. You have to find the things that make you happy for you. But I love that you said that. I also agree with you that there are no such thing as dream jobs. I really do believe that. So
yeah, yeah,
you have to just find what you kind of would like to do. And
yeah, absolutely.
pros and cons to everything, you know?
And that will change over time too, which is sort of a running theme in our conversation is like a career change doesn't have to be like, I made the wrong decision when I was 21. It's like, no, maybe you're over it. Like, that's
It's
okay.
and it's
Yeah.
okay to change careers. It's okay. I actually heard this probably when I was in high school, I think. My grandma and I were talking, and when I was in high school, I mean, that was 15 years ago, but I had heard this quote that the average person changes their job, I want to say at least 3 times in their lifetime.
Mhm.
Like I think that's one of those, like my guidance counselor was just reassuring everybody, like, you're going to pick this major and it probably isn't going to be the major you want. Like that was the only person that
Yeah.
made sense in the let's figure this out when I was a kid like that. But she's probably like, that's not what you're going to want to do. And when you get to your dream job, right? It might not be what you want to do. You might change. And that was always something that I remember thinking, like, it's okay if you change your career a few times, but I'm also not the very traditional routed person. And I know that about myself. I think most people who also listen to this podcast are a little off the beaten path and don't want the norm. They want you might be listening to this and be like, Madison, I do work a 9 to 5, bitch. But if you do,
Yeah.
there's no hate for it. I think you got to do what's best for you. I just think it's got to feel right and you have to be happy doing it. Period.
Absolutely. Yeah. And that's again, like just the thing about self-discovery, self-exploration versus advice is like most advice is going to be, yeah, stick to your 9 to 5. Like it's safe and happy, but like it's up to you. And some people do prefer the stability and they do enjoy having a job that they can leave at the end of the day
Yep.
and shut it off and it's not their responsibility.
I sometimes think about it.
Totally valid.
Sometimes I'm like, man, that would be so nice. And when I do my catering jobs, I go to work for my 8 to 10 hour shifts. I know how much money I'm coming home with in my pocket. It is a very reassuring day for me.
Yeah.
And that is the con side of being a freelancer. I don't make the same amount of money every day.
Yep.
So, I think like you said, just be happy, do you, and whatever works ultimately. You don't have to be afraid to step away if you do want to step away. And it doesn't
Yeah.
have to be immediate either, which is something I also really love that you mentioned. We're going to probably end this podcast with this because you said it could be a 1 year plan, a 2 year plan, a 3 year plan, as long as you're feeling supported on your exit. And that is exactly what you do. Lucy
Yeah.
does that. So if you're interested, you're looking for somebody to help you with a little bit of guidance, you have a free workbook, which I'll put in my show notes. And I'm going to put you in my, I'll put you in my, I can't speak, in my little description of my episode.
Yeah.
So you can reach out to her there, but follow her on Instagram so you can see what she talks about. And it doesn't have to be scary to leave your job or to make a change or to jump.
Yeah. Yeah. And it can be scary and you can still do it too.
Yeah. It's
Yeah.
you're allowed to be scared and still do things. And that's okay if you're scared. But it's
Sometimes they're
nice.
the most rewarding. So, yeah,
Yeah. And it's nicer to jump with somebody holding your hand, which is what you essentially do.
absolutely. Yep.
That could be like your tagline, holding your hand while you make the big jump.
Yeah, I love it.
This episode was just so wholesome. It was a reminder that there is always a way out through community, resources, guidance, support. You really can do it all. Utilize the help that you need whenever you need it. You are without a doubt a badass. Don't you forget it. XOXO, your girl Mad, and I will see you next week for episode number 30. 30. Wild. 30. 30 weeks, guys, I will be doing this podcast. I'm so excited. What should I do for number 30? You have any topic things we should talk about? Anyway, see you out there next week. Peace out. Bye.